Hi, Jordyn. Welcome to the Rich Next podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, I have been writing novels for ever, really, for a long time. I was working full time as a journalist and writing novels on the side. I wrote 5 YA novels that way. But a year and a half ago, I made the decision to go full time author. I quit my day job and I decided to use all of my new free time to explore an idea that I had for years. And that book was See You at the Summit, my adult debut, and yeah, my upcoming queer rom-com about a woman who comes out as bisexual and then reluctantly falls for a straight guy.
Yes, I was telling you, it's such a nuanced book. I'm so grateful that it's there because it wouldn't have worked 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but like in this 2025, it feels just like nuanced conversation about, bisexuality, what it needs to be, because there's a lot of bi-erasure. Like even with the heated rivalry discourse that's happening, like
Yes,
there's a lot of, they're like, it's a gay, it's not, it's a queer romance because Ilya is bi. Like
yes,
it's part of his identity. Like there's nothing wrong with it. So there's a lot of like nuance around that space and specifically bisexuality.
totally. And
Um,
I think you're so right that 10, 20 years ago, like we probably just would have had to be explaining what bisexuality even is. And so to
yes,
be able to have this more niche conversation is, that it's exciting in a way because it does show that we've come far. And yes, of course, there is still so much work we have to do to fight back against bi-erasure, but it is really cool to be able to have this kind of conversation now.
yeah, and even Ryan's mom's the fact that he's an ally and he had to come out straight to moms. That's a conversation that I wouldn't see it in my childhood. Like it's a pretty I'm in my 40s right now, so it's like an interesting like part of it. It's just normalized. Like
Totally.
families come in different forms, different shape. It's also coming out straight in a queer family. So part of coming out too, getting that label.
Yeah, I was thinking about how Ryan's experience could contrast Simone's really as much as possible. And Simone goes through the experience of coming out as bisexual to her pretty conservative family. And I was like, okay, what is the polar opposite of that? Okay, it's having this sexy straight guy have to come out to his queer moms at Pride.
Yeah. Yeah, so the book is set in the winter. And it's in Toronto. I know we go to Whistler. We have skiing time, pride events. It's very queer, very gay, very bisexual, very queer book that we have. So, what was like the process of writing and like coming up with this story and setting it in Canada, not in the US, which is actually unique?
Thank
I've read
you.
quite a few books.
So I'm from Canada. I was born and raised in Toronto. I've written 5 YA novels before this, and none of them took place in Canada. I decided that for my adult debut, let's go to my hometown. Let's just, in so many ways, this is the book of my heart as a bisexual woman myself. And I was like, you know what? Going with that book of the heart theme, let's also set it in Canada. This is my first adult book and also my first book set in my hometown, my home country. The idea came in part from my own lived experiences and also from the work that I was doing in my former career as a journalist. For a long time, I was the sex and relationships editor at Men's Health magazine. And so much of what I was doing was reporting on gender and identity and how that shows up in our relationships. And so I did a lot of work on understanding conversations around bisexuality and specifically how bi-erasure was affecting our readers. And this was one of the ways that it was constantly showing up in the questions that we were getting from readers, which was about how do I embrace my bisexuality if I'm in a heterosexual relationship? What does that look like? And so I know that it's something that I myself have experienced, and I know that it's something that a lot of our readers were experiencing. And so that's why this story was really on I was going to say the tip of my tongue, the fringes of my brain when
Yeah.
I made that leap to go full-time author and when I sat down to pitch what that first book was going to be in this new stage of my career.
I love this. Like, it's a nuanced conversation that we continue to have, and it's just a part of, what it looks like. And I think, especially different generations, how they confront it too. We have younger generations felt that this is normal, while older generations this was taboo. And even just confronting different identity, different labels, and how you actually show it to the world. along with taking into place, there's a lot of homophobia, there's a lot of conservative Christian nationalism, and all these different things trying to make this the big bad wolf that does not exist. And so I think this is a really valuable conversation. I think especially the idea of being bisexual and being in one straight looking, what conservative people would be like,
Mhm.
it's not.
And, what can be challenging about people in Simone's position is that, yes, you have that horrible homophobia from some more conservative sections of society, but then you also sometimes experience discrimination from within the queer community, from people that you want to trust. Because sometimes when you are, like Simone, a bisexual person in a heterosexual relationship, so, to somebody else, you might appear a straight person. That's really difficult too when you're trying to find your queer community. Studies actually show that bisexual people experience anxiety and depression at higher rates than lesbians and gay people. And part of that is it's because of that. It's called double discrimination, the discriminations that's coming from outside the queer community and from within. Knowing that statistic from my work as a journalist was part of what I had in mind when I went to write this book.
I love this. And I hope you keep writing more queer books.
I have another one coming out next year. So not next year.
Perfect.
Sorry. I have no sense of what year
27.
we're in. Yeah. See you at the summit comes out in 2026. And I have another book that comes out in 2027.
Perfect. I am so excited. So we gotta talk about one of your passions and probably hyperfixation, which is Hyrox. And
Yup.
people don't know what it is. I have an idea. It's a pretty intense competition.
Yes.
So talk to us about that journey, because yes, you work in men's health, so you're familiar with the fitness and your journalism and stuff. But Hyrox is that's a niche competition. It's
Yes,
so pure.
it is. I have been describing myself as a nerd jock hybrid because I write novels by day, but then I'm also low key like a huge meathead gym bro.
Yeah.
So, for those who aren't familiar, Hyrox is a fitness competition that combines running with strengths and like high intensity cardio station. So the way I explain it is like, are you familiar with like an obstacle race, like a Tough Mudder, where you run and then there's an obstacle and then you run, there's an obstacle. So that's the setup of Hyrox, where you run a kilometer and then you do a station and then you run a kilometer and you do a station. And in total, you run 8 kilometers and do 8 stations. And the stations range from really hardcore strength things like pushing a really heavy sled to more cardio based things like rowing and like skiing on machines. So the whole thing, the best people in the world do it like in under an hour, but it takes me about an hour and a half to do it. And it's so difficult, but also so much fun. You feel so accomplished at the end. You feel so strong. And I also just love the process of training for it because you really bond with the other people at your gym that are going through the same thing.
So you're training at the gym, training looks like, because I have a friend, I'm a former fitness trainer that I used to take her classes, who has been training, has been participating in various Hyrox competitions. I've seen some of the training and some of the stuff. Because a specific training, like a specific gym that practices this, it would look like not CrossFit, but when you think about it and that idea of like,
Yeah. You don't have to go to a Hyrox specific gym, but I think there's a lot of overlap between, and I also don't train at a CrossFit gym, but I think from my understanding is there's some overlap between the things that show up in Hyrox and the things that show up at a CrossFit gym. I train at gyms that have more, I do a lot of high intensity interval training, and then I also just do a lot of heavy lifting on my own. So what I love about Hyrox is that unlike a marathon, where if you're not like, I know that my body is just not built to run a marathon. It's not, but it's also probably not built to be like an Olympic powerlifter. The CrossFit is designed for like people who are sort of good at everything.
yeah,
And I like to work out at a gym that lets me practice all of those different things, like from running to sled pushing or lifting heavy sandbags. Yeah, right now my training looks like it's mostly high intensity interval training because during Hyrox, you really like your heart rate is just, it's all over the place. And then, yeah, just doing my own like heavy lifts to make sure that I am still like muscularly fit for it. And then I will also start running when I'll start running like ideally I would be running now, but I actually tore my adductor muscle. So I was like, I did my last Hyrox competition was in New York in June. And I was like, wow, like I'm in a lot of pain. And it turned out that I had been working out on a torn adductor for who knows how long. So now I am doing the smart thing and in sort of a recovery mode and taking it easy on my lower body. But once I feel up to it again, I will start running as well, in addition to all that other training.
So how did you land this particular modality? Was it,
It was
what
something that my
beforehand?
you know, I've always just I've loved working out. Like growing up, my mom, she used to work as a personal trainer. So like I grew up like being in the gym with her. So I was always super familiar with the gym environment. And I joined a gym. I spent 13 years living in New York. I just moved to Miami a month ago. But in New York, I joined a gym in my neighborhood as a way to get more connected to people during COVID, actually. They were doing outdoor workouts. And I ended up just making so many amazing friends with this gym. And I kept training with them. And it turns out the owners of this gym had done Hyrox before. So they were the ones who introduced me and all of my fellow workout friends to Hyrox. And so we all started training together. I totally fell in love with it. And when we moved to Miami, it was so important to me to continue being a part of the Hyrox community. And so I found a Hyrox affiliated gym down here that specifically does Hyrox training. And like I low key chose my apartment based on being within walking distance to this gym. That is how I got into it. Yeah, it all started because of my trainers at my previous gym, but now I'm just completely hooked.
I'll just tell you, I think we probably crossed paths and we talked about it because I used to, before the books, I was reviewing fitness passes, between fitness passes in New York City, the twice. And I moved to Florida, actually. I moved to Chicago. I chose Chicago because it was like closer to the classes I wanted to take too, because I was like, I want to try new studios.
Mhm.
And funny enough, I ended up in Tampa actually, because I moved right before COVID started. So I was like, shut down. I did not experience Chicago.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
so basically, when I moved to Tampa, like our process of like finding new studios and like testing out, like and finding different things. But I was without a car for a long time, so I was like, I needed to find. I moved to places where the studios were close by,
Yes.
so I could go.
And I find that makes it so much easier to incorporate it into your daily life if it's something that
Yes,
is like walkable. I also don't drive, so I couldn't go to anything farther. But for even for people who do drive, I think it makes it so much easier if it's right
it is.
there.
It is. I actually that was my biggest problem this week was the Pilates studio. So I'm doing the reform delivery reformer, and there was a studio that I signed up half an hour away. And in the past, it would have been fine in New York because you just like to travel to the Upper East Side from Tribeca, or you travel to Chelsea because there's a bunch of studios in Chelsea. And I thought it was going to be the same. And then I was like, no, no, no. I don't want to drive 30 minutes to go to the Legree studio. Like, there's a Legree studio that's opening up. And like, it's the same amount of time, but it's 20 minutes and it's like shorter and stuff. And now it's like for making sense. Like, in order for me to go, I need to make myself much more convenient to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So wait, did you end up driving 30 minutes?
Yes, did it for 3 months. And now, like,
But not sustainable.
no, well, like, around 30 minutes, it's like, it's a rush hour traffic.
No, we
There
can't.
15 minutes. You may be
Mm-mm.
15 minutes either too early or too late. So I had to have the conversation with the gym today, and I was like, it's just too far away.
Yeah.
Like, it's not work.
No, fair. I totally sympathize.
Yeah. So funny enough, the other luxury called me. They're like, hey, we're opening up.
Oh,
Here's a better rate. And it's next to the Target. And I was like, well, I can go to Target afterwards.
what more could you ask for, honestly?
Yes. Yes, that's what I think when you're thinking about like a routine or finding like a fitness modality, you have to make it convenient. You cannot make barriers to entry as much as possible. Like you have to remove those as much as possible.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk some book recommendations. I love one of your books, which is
Oh
Like
my
Tuesday.
gosh.
Like,
I'm so happy you said that. I actually read that book like maybe last year, but I loved it so much. I was like, this isn't even a recent book recommendation, but I just need to put it on this list because I loved it so much.
No, it's so good. So talk to them about what Turosaka is about, because I think it's a great exploration of polyamory and it's a true published book.
I
So,
agree. And it makes me so excited that there is this traditionally published throuple book in the market as a sex journalist, somebody who's my life mission is to help readers pursue pleasure without shame. And part of that is by destigmatizing these different relationship dynamics that really can be so beautiful. And we just are ashamed to explore them or talk about them. So this book does a fantastic job of that. It's a romance novel about a single person, a bartender, who ends up falling in love with a couple. And what I think TJ Alexander, the author, does so well is that not only does the single person fall in love with the couple, but, TJ really dived into the relationships between, because a throuple is really like 4 different relationships existing simultaneously, right? Partner A and partner B, partner A and partner C, partner B and partner C, and then all 3 people together. And so I think that TJ Alexander did such an excellent job at showing all of those relationships at play, and each one felt so distinct and so romantic and sexy. And I really bought into every little piece of that triad relationship. And I had just never read anything like that in the mainstream publishing world. And from the reporting that I was doing on polyamory, I was so happy to see that carrying through into the fiction world.
Yes, it's so good. And I love their other book. Their debut is great. Their follow-up. There's a lot of non-binary trans characters and like all types of relationships. And I think it's a great exploration. I think they're a great author if you're looking for some more different, like a different point of view that you normally wouldn't see. What other books do you tend to read? I know you read a little bit of like mystery, like thrillers. And
Yeah, I tend to bounce around between romance, historical fiction, and thrillers, which are the 3 genres that I have published. And one book that I read recently that combined all 3 of those genres was Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. That was one of my favorite reads of the year. I actually listened to the audiobook and it was done so beautifully. I need you to picture me walking down like the busy streets of New York City, listening to this audiobook and just openly sobbing at the ending. It's an incredible book. It's about the first female astronauts at NASA. And it's a love story between 2 of them. And there's also a thriller element because there's an emergency in the space shuttle. It really ticks all of the boxes of my favorite genres. And just the historical research that must have gone into this is totally staggering. And then on top of that, you have a beautiful, passionate love story. Oh my God, it's just so good. Like right now, I always have one book that I'm constantly screaming at people to read. That's my screaming at people book right now.
I love this. And it's the book of the year. I think audiobook of the year from like a lot of the list. It's a perfect. I think audio is great though, but definitely prepare for the Kleenex because you're gonna cry.
For sure. You have to be, if you're listening to the audiobook while you go about your daily life, you have to be comfortable crying in public.
Yes. Maybe not do it in an airport.
Oh, yeah.
Jordyn, tell us where you find you online.
Oh, I would be delighted to. You can find me on Instagram at Jordyn H. Taylor, and Jordyn is spelled Jordyn, and then the letter H, and then Taylor. You can also find me at my website, which is jordynhtaylor.com. And in either of those places, you can find links to subscribe to my newsletter, where I will share all the latest updates on my books, as well as some bonus content and other fun stuff. So yeah, find me there.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordyn, for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Thanks for listening to the What to Read Next. For more book lists, cozy reads, and library tips, visit the whattoreadnextblog.com. Your next great read might be waiting there.